Welcome to Tech in Translation, the podcast where we break down the complexities of today's most innovative technologies into something we can all understand.
Brought to you by Iron Bow Technologies, a next-generation solutions provider. We're committed to helping our customers across the government, education, commercial, and healthcare sectors turn their tech challenges into real, actionable outcomes.
At Iron Bow, we believe that technology should be a tool for empowerment, not a source of confusion.
That's why each episode of Tech in Translation is designed to demystify the latest trends, tools, and technologies, making them accessible for everyone, whether you're a seasoned professional or just tech curious.
Join us as we translate complex tech into everyday language, one episode at a time. Welcome back to Tech in Translation. I'm your host for today, Fran Eletroshukejiofo. Today's episode dives into the path of women in technology and leadership, how we build careers, gain confidence, and lead in a fast-moving, high-stakes field. Joining us is the legendary Trina Marlowe. She's been in the industry for over 25 years and basically does it all, leading governance, risk, compliance, customer and employee experience, as well as professional and managed IT services at Iron Bow. Trina, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with your story. How did you get started and what led you to where you are now?
Sure. And thanks, Fran. Thanks for the intro. Interesting story. So I actually started out in the healthcare field. Healthcare is really where I got a lot of my compliance and business process experience. So I worked in the healthcare field for about 10 years. I started getting a lot of exposure at that point to IT and found it fascinating, moved into IT probably in the mid-90s and really gravitated to project management. I would say as I look at my career, it was really my project management experience that really catapulted me. And a lot of that is really what I had to understand on how to run a project and how to apply the appropriate leadership. So I learned a lot on the business process end in healthcare, applied it to my project management, and I would say I still use it today.
Amazing. And fun fact, I didn't even know you had worked in healthcare before. So you really have done it all. So it's so exciting to have you here. And you touched on it a little bit. Let's go back to the early days of your career. What drew you into tech originally, and what were some key steps in your progression?
So interestingly enough, back in the 90s, healthcare was going through a lot of technology transition. Back then, a lot of healthcare institutions were sort of behind on technology. They were fearful of technology. A lot of practitioners loved paper, right? And so I was working in there when that transition had started. So what would happen is I would be pulled in by the IT org all the time as one of their favorite testers. Right. I never actually considered myself a technical person. I was in healthcare administration. That was my focus. It was my passion. So I really hadn't thought about technology, but I kept getting pulled in when they were bringing in new technology. And I remember saying, like, why do you keep pulling me in? And they were like, well, you're good at this. Like, you're really good. And then I started to really gravitate and started sort of aligning with the IT group in their projects and got more and more fascinated with, okay, this is such a different field than what I'm used to. And I literally changed my career path because of it. While I thought I was going into healthcare administration, I actually deviated at that point and went right into the IT field.
Okay, that's huge because that's so much more than like being a professional guinea pig. And I think so many people, especially women, are very fearful to make that transition. Where do I even start if I want to make any sort of career change? And especially with this market right now, I just have to, ask how did you navigate that transition?
I would say it was, it's a long story. I never thought of myself as a technical person, right? So now I have this large group that's saying like, hey, you're our it person. Like you're the one that's helping us through this. I was at the time going to night school, right? And I was 3 years in to my degree. And for those who've gone to night school, 3 years is not insignificant.
No, at all.
It's a Herculean milestone. And I kept just getting more and more fascinated with IT. And I started looking into IT courses just because I wanted to get a little bit more exposure. And long story short, I actually changed my major. I lost 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
So I almost started back again, ended up with my MIS degree. Best decision I could have ever made. We want to talk about pivoting and how hard it was for me to actually take that leap and say, I've never done this before. It's not what I envisioned was my skill. I had a lot of folks actually being champions for me, which I think really helped. But it was a leap. It was an absolute leap. Best thing I could have done. So appreciative. Losing time, 2 years was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I
But
can
that
imagine.
investment has paid tenfold. So it was a journey.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
such an inspiring story, and I think
Oh, thanks.
leaves a lot of hope for our listeners out there. I definitely want to get to the having a champion component, so I definitely want to touch on that. What did mentorship look like for you?
So for me, throughout my career, and again, I've had I would say a lot of mentors unofficially, right? Not through programs, but who I align myself with. And to me, it was really again like if I'm aligning myself with somebody that has that same sort of drive that I have and the curiosity that I have, it always kept me fascinated. So I aligned with those bosses that were sort of like me and that were really promoting and aiding in really giving me more things to do and challenging me more. So when I think back of like, did I have just one boss? And it's like, no, I felt like I always gravitated to that manager that was looking for someone that was trying to drive more.
Yeah.
I do tend to keep my career has been always long in each company. So I was in the healthcare field for 10 years.
Oh wow.
I was in an IT organization for another 10 years, but I always had different managers that saw my talent or saw my drive, plucked me into their groups, and really helped promote me to do more. So to me,
Okay.
a lot of mentorship is really about who I'm aligned with.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been really beneficial for me in my career because it kept me curious and it kept me always learning more.
Yeah, I feel
So,
like it's the make or break, right? Your
yeah.
mentors and champions. This is random, but did it make a difference if they were men or women? Was it, a bit of both?
No, interestingly enough, my entire career, I look back, I think I've only had two female bosses.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and ironically, when I started in the IT industry, I actually started in marketing.
Oh, no way.
Because
Look
yeah,
at that. A fellow
telemarketing,
marketer.
telemarketing, which was super interesting because at that time, they had some of the same vendors that we support through Iron Bow today. And she was the one that saw that I just was super curious. And so she just kept sending me to training and saying, whatever you want,
Wow.
I'll support you. But the majority of my bosses have actually been men.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating. And quick follow-up question to that. Was there something you didn't, I mean, you obviously gravitated towards, like interests, people who are equally curious and probably leaned in, but were there things you did proactively to make sure you were seen more or that these champions, gravitated towards you? Is there anything there?
Yeah, I would say, well, I'm not a shy person, I would say.
Yeah.
I think I was always the one that they knew that if there was something that was broken, I was there to try to help fix it, right? I tend to be a fixer in general.
Yeah, that's Trina Marlowe at
And
Iron Bow too. Yep. That
and
clicks.
and I think as problems arose, I was always saying like, "Hey, I'll do it. I'll try it." And a lot of times it's really about are you going to raise your hand when it's an ugly situation, right?
Mm.
Not when it's a perfect opportunity that, just kind of presents itself to you. Usually it's a problem. And a
Yes.
lot of times I think people shy away. They don't want to fail, right? They don't want to be the ones that said, "Oh, this broke because so and so couldn't fix it," right?
Yeah.
I turned it into opportunity, and I think I was sort of known for that, right? And so I think back to especially a lot of the key bosses that I really look up to, and they always said, "Whenever there's a problem, I know I can call you,
Oh my
and I know
gosh.
you can fix it."
Yes.
And I think I started to get known for that pretty early in my career.
I love that. That's
So
a whole personal tagline right there and
yeah,
totally resonates because at
yeah.
Iron Bow, that's Trina Marlowe. When there's something broken, like Trina's not afraid to say, hey, this is broken, and we go to Trina to fix it. So very much still tracks. What was one of the, most memorable pieces of advice that mentors gave you that really stuck with you?
I would say the most important thing was be curious, which really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And do not underestimate yourself. As women, I think a lot of us have been in scenarios where, I remember early in my career, if I didn't know how to do everything, it would not even occur to me to apply for a certain job.
Yeah.
Right. So I would have to know everything before I would even feel brave enough. And lots of my bosses were like, hey, you can do anything you want. Like, don't set limits to yourself. And I
Yes.
think that really has resonated through the years. And it helps because you need that reminder sometimes
Yeah.
when, you're doubting yourself, you're hedging into something that you've never done before. I remember like one of the biggest moments in my career as a project manager, I was pulled in to actually basically fix a failing program that was a multi-million dollar
Oh,
program.
wow.
And I remember my boss and I said, should I take this? Like it was a big leap for me. And he said, well, let me just tell you, you're either going to be the reason and the scapegoat and this is why it failed, or you'll be the hero.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
and I thought, wow.
Drastically different choices
So,
there.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, he was trying to be honest with me because
Yeah.
you do have to look at it realistically. But I took it as an opportunity and,
Yes.
took that particular position, which really actually catapulted my career. It was probably one of the hardest programs I had,
Yeah.
but I learned so much from it. And I'm definitely a person where if I don't know it, I'll figure it out. So I think that's actually been really helpful for me throughout
Oh,
my
I
career.
love that.
Yeah.
Preach. I mean, say no to the imposter syndrome and,
Yeah,
lean in
for
and
sure.
try and do it. So I love that so much. So I think we went over this a bit, what you think helped you earn the support of sponsors and champions throughout your career. And I think you described it being curious and just being willing to, raise your hand and get in there. Were there other moments where a champion or a sponsor really helped you move your career forward in a big, momentous way?
Yeah, so I talked about that program. I think that was early in my career.
Yeah.
I've been here with Iron Bow for 20 years. I
Amazing.
was, I think about 5 years in, no, almost 10 years in, when our CEO, Renee Levine, called me up one Saturday. I can still remember exactly where I was sitting, exactly what I was doing. I remember thinking, why is the CEO of the company calling me on a Saturday? There must be a problem
Oh
with the
my goodness. Yeah.
project. And he had said, hey, I noticed that you've taken the time to really get to know the business. And I want you to work with me to start formalizing our first strategic action plan. Not that we didn't have strategy before, but we had wanted to actually get a more formal one.
Yeah.
That really helped expand really my knowledge about Iron Bow, or then it was Aptus, and really gave me an opportunity to go outside of the PMO at the time, which is what I was running. So
Okay.
that part of me that doesn't like to be bored and likes to always find new things. But it gave me a lot of exposure, and I learned a lot of things that I hadn't necessarily knew as much detail on. And it really helped me as my career has progressed within Iron Bow expand to my current role. Right.
Wow.
So I think that
Yeah.
was a big pivotal point later on as part of my third major career. Because Iron Bow is really the third major organization I've worked with.
Oh, amazing. And I
Yeah.
love that example so much because I mean, the CEO reached out, he saw you and took the time
Yeah.
to reach out. And I feel like that's a good
Yeah.
lesson or insight for leaders too.
Yeah.
It's like also, people might not be, raising their hand in all ways, but the way they
Yeah.
quietly show up and for leaders to be able to recognize that and,
Yeah.
know who to lean on and
Yeah.
reach out to and maybe promote internally. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I do remember being surprised how much he recognized what I had really taken the time to learn and how I had connected the dots. Because I'm not a person that tends to just say, look what I did or
Yeah.
advertise it out. But he saw it, right? And
Yeah.
and he saw that I definitely took that time and he recognized it enough to actually, give me another opportunity. So I've been super appreciative of that.
I love that. Maybe you can help too with advice because I feel like already a lot of women also don't like to talk about themselves or their accomplishments and not, don't want to brag, but people say, well, try and talk yourself up more. But
Yeah.
in your case too, sometimes it's like, well, the right leader recognized me. Where would you say it is the best place to kind of strike that balance?
I think the biggest thing is when there's an opportunity, say yes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I was in a position, I was a senior director at the time, or actually, I think I was just a director at the time. But I happened to also be invited to the weekly executive meetings
Mm.
to do readouts. And so I took that as an opportunity to learn and to figure out what the leadership team expected of me and what was my contribution.
Yeah.
So it's really about you see you see the opportunity instead, you can either be nervous and gun shy and not take it, or you can just take a bit of a leap. There were moments when it was scary for me,
Yeah.
right? Because I felt like I didn't know it all. I felt like,
Yeah.
wow, I've got all these executives and they have their rhythm and they've been working together for a long time. And so it was definitely intimidating, but you don't leap a little bit, I think you don't learn.
Yeah.
And I would say for anybody that, especially that's starting out in their career, take that leap. When somebody says, "Hey, can you do fill in the blank?" I always say the answer is yes. And if you don't know it, and you don't know what it's all about, you head back home, you hit Google, you hit Chat GPT, you do your research, you get
Yeah.
yourself ready, get
Right.
as prepared as possible, but don't say no because it's missed opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think I did leap a little, but I think my personality, especially being curious, why would I say no?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there were some intimidating days that were, I mean, to me, I have all the respect for, my higher ups. And so sitting in a room of these folks that have done more than I've done and have, this experience that I didn't have, but I chose to use it as a learning experience instead of just being afraid. And I also want to make sure that I'm contributing.
Yeah.
And so do your homework, come back, come to the table with data that's meaningful. Once you pay attention and learn at what they're looking for,
Yeah.
then it sort of naturally happens. They see that you're willing, they see that you're able, and then they start to rely on you more and trust you more.
Wow.
So
I love
yeah,
that. So take the leap and basically come, prepared as possible on that. That sounds
yeah,
like that's kind of how you overcame that initial fear
for
or maybe
sure.
imposter
Be
syndrome. Yeah.
prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared. That's the one thing, right? You do your homework, and you'll never be 100%.
Yeah.
I've learned that it can't. I like perfect, but you
Don't we
can't
all?
expect perfect, right?
Yeah.
And so do the best that you can and know that everybody else is just as human as you are, right?
Yes.
But they will recognize that you've done your due diligence. They will see that and have that confidence, because I think that gets you past those insecure moments and gives you those opportunities.
I love that. I
So,
love that
well,
so
thanks.
much. Oh, good words of wisdom here. So you told us about the big pivot in your career. I mean, health administration to IT. Are there any other major pivots or just, some more advice for those who are really either they're trying to take that big leap or make that transition in their career? What words of advice do you have for them?
I think the biggest advice I could give is, again, what's been given to me, and that is don't limit yourself and don't
Mm.
don't assume you can't. Like, I remember being very surprised, like, why are you picking me? I don't understand IT. And they were, and I had a lot of folks saying, like, why do you think you can't do this? So it's so super easy to second guess yourself. I have
Yeah.
two daughters, and I watched them go through the same thing I did at the beginning of their
Oh my
careers.
gosh.
The imposter syndrome, the I can't do this. And I'm like, look, you're in this with those rose-colored glasses thinking everybody else has it figured out.
Yeah.
They don't. They're going to have the same insecurities and the same doubts and the same, concerns and
Yes.
roadblocks that we're going to have. I feel like the young professionals coming up have such a high standard of themselves and a
Yes.
standard of perfection. I see that in both of my daughters,
Oh my
and it
gosh.
was crippling for them, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny now that they're in their, mid-20s, they're like, "Oh, you were right." It's like, well,
Of course. Of course mom was
yes,
right. Yeah.
but it was they had to go through the path themselves to learn it, and then all I did was continue to reassure them that you're no different than the next person you're working with, right? But it's your work ethic, it's your ability to really get in there and help out and be a part of the team. It will get noticed,
Yeah.
right? And I think you got to keep sort of giving yourself that talk a little bit
Yeah.
to kind of squash down the inner voice that has the doubt.
Yes.
And I do think, again, like I said, with my two daughters, it was amazing how it was very similar to when
Yeah.
I was growing up, in I think a little bit more so because I didn't have the social media aspect
All right. I mean, which
to
adds
deal
even
with. Yeah.
more.
So for me, I think that's the biggest thing. Don't limit yourself. And again, I've always said, somebody picks up the phone and says, "Hey, I need some help." Your answer is yes, yes, I can.
Yes, let's
So
dive in. I
yeah,
love that. And thank you for mentioning your daughters and family too. I always hate this question, the kind of like work-life balance one, but I
mm,
feel like in a system that just doesn't really support, right, career-focused women
yeah,
and trying to have families.
yeah.
I mean, you did it all. Is there any advice to just navigate that? I'm also trying to show up for I have a young 6-year-old daughter and then two young boys
Oh,
and trying to show them too, like, this is what showing up looks like. And having a career and all that while still having time for the
Yeah.
family. But any advice or insights you have there?
I never look at myself as the role model. So, but I would say it is a balance. There are going to be hard decisions. But two things that I kind of that comforts me. I know that any and all major events that they needed and wanted me to be a part of, I was a part of.
Yeah.
So I always made those a priority. Were there some things that I missed? There were,
Yeah.
right? I had work obligations, but anything that was super important to them that I knew I would have to do whatever it took to make sure I was a part of, and I feel really good about that. I was the designated driver for my
Yeah.
kids' friends, and so people used to be like, "Why do you want to do that?" It's like, because you know what? Every time I drive them around, I get the stories, I get the chit chat, I get to know them a little bit more.
Exactly.
So you
Yeah.
grasp onto any moment that you can, and they say it a lot, right? It's not about the quantity; it's about the quality, right? And
Yes.
so you take the moments as you can, and I still had those moments of guilt.
Yeah.
I have to work late, and I mean, I remember one time when my daughter was in like middle school, and she goes, "Doesn't anybody else do anything in your company?" I was like,
I do.
Yes, it's not just me."
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
But I look at them now and they have the same work ethic I have. They have the
Wow.
same drive that I have. They're
I love
both
that.
very motivated. They both, I mean, I've met their bosses and they're like, "She's the best. She's my
Oh
go-to
my
person."
gosh,
So it makes
yes.
me proud. And then sometimes, they'll say things like, "Oh, my boss is just like you." I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And they're like, "No, it's good. It's good." So
Oh, I love
watching
that.
that they sort of paid attention and
Yes.
took it as a positive and they are moving it forward. I feel like that really helped me be like, okay, I did it. I did the blend enough where I did balance it and
Yes.
they learned, but we have all those moments of time together when it was most important to them.
Oh, I
So
love that so much. That is so helpful. I mean, that's powerful. It's like grasp the moments and
yeah,
make it more about quality, not quantity. And then
exactly.
the fact that maybe, okay, some of these late
Yeah.
nights, are
And you will
working and
have
they'll
guilty
see
moments.
all the guilty mom moments will pay
Yeah.
off maybe in their work ethic or their own success in
Yeah.
life. So that is so cool to hear. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
sure.
sharing that.
Yeah.
That means a lot. So we've touched on it a little bit. Imposter syndrome. It's always talked about, very real thing, especially in leadership roles. You mentioned, right, just
Yeah.
leaning in, saying yes, trying to prepare as much as possible. Anything else you did to kind of move past that fear and self doubt?
Well, for me, when I got there were periods, obviously, everybody has periods of time where they're really, super stressed and they're like, "Can I do it? I'm not sure if I can do it." I actually always pulled myself away,
Mm,
right? I think that everybody should have a hobby. They should have something
yeah.
that is almost therapeutic for them. I actually I do decorating and painting.
Okay.
And I found that on my most stressful times when I needed to be out of my head, I either had a new project or I'd hit the gym for like 2 hours,
Yes.
right? So I
Work it
could
off.
be outside of my head. And I think a lot of times that's where the doubt comes in is you're in your head and you're kind of swirling around and you're bouncing things in your head and
Yeah.
find something that takes you out of that and gives you happiness and comfort. And I think it enabled me to come back at those times because I noticed whenever it was really stressful, I'm like, what new project can I do in the house?
Yes.
Right. And I think
Decorating
it's just like
time.
a therapy for me, right? Because I could focus like painting on a wall where you have to have those exact lines. You can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
Right. And so get yourself out of it, do something else, help somebody else. I tell my girls that all the time, like how good it feels when you extend yourself to somebody else,
Oh my gosh.
especially,
Yeah.
when they have a need for it. It gives you that confidence back and it takes you out of your head. And
Yeah.
then it kind of enables you to come back with a fresh perspective where you're like, I'm ready for the drive, I'm ready for the
Yes.
fight. But I think it's always a process. You know what I mean? I think there's always going to be moments where there's a little bit of doubt or you're super stressed.
Yeah.
And it's just balancing and getting yourself back into that head frame. I don't find it as hard now at this point in my career,
Right.
but it's funny because I see it with my girls.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping to sort of give them a little bit of advice that I didn't have. So maybe they can navigate it earlier in their career than
Yeah.
I did. But yeah, I think it's just getting out of your head.
I love that. Like the creativity, find a hobby, the athleticism
Yeah.
component. I think everyone I know now at least works out in some
Yeah.
capacity. I love it. As an aspiring runner, I did the Army 10 miler with some of the Iron Bow team for the first time, and I was never a runner before, but I truly love that. And I'm on the Nike app, and one of the coaches, Coach Bennett, says sometimes you got to pull back to push forward. And I feel
That
like
makes
that really
sense.
resonates a lot, right? Just sometimes you
Yeah.
got to like, okay, let's take a moment to be creative, something outside of
Breathe.
work, breathe, right?
Yeah,
So we
exactly.
we can
That's a
like
good
kind of
point.
lean in. So that really
Yeah.
resonates. Thank you. That's, I
Awesome.
think, really insightful. And yes, people take the time to also nurture yourself and your hobbies and
Yeah.
interests.
For sure.
Amazing. So when you're about to take on something new or challenging, you mentioned preparation is key. Chat GPT, Google, what have you. How do you prepare mentally and strategically?
Depending on the issue or opportunity at hand, right? To me, again, it's just about doing research, putting pen to paper. I actually tend to, I'm a transcriber, right?
Mhm.
It's how I remember things, and so putting pen to paper, doing my research, extrapolating from there, and also being able to sit back and say, what's the story I'm trying to convey,
Yeah.
right? I learned that a long time ago. It's not just about a bunch of bullet points, right? Even though I love data, right? I could give all the data in the world. It's really about preparing yourself enough to say, what am I trying to convey? What's the message I'm trying to convey?
Yeah.
And what's my audience and what can they consume, right? And I always say, start off with your pictures. And I've learned this from many, many coaching opportunities provided to me because I do like to give detail.
Yeah.
But, I've learned people love detail, but you can't start it with detail. So
Yes.
as I plan, I factor in my audience and say, okay, what is it that I can present to them that's consumable
Yeah.
as I'm doing my prep? And then what's the story and how am I going to weave it into a story?
Yes.
And then I always have all the detail behind me because it invariably is at least one person that says, where did that data come from?
Always.
So
There's
I'm
always that
always
one.
prepared with
Yeah.
the high level, all the detail behind it. But again, I think it's really about prepping, doing your due diligence, making sure that you are as prepped as you can be,
Yeah.
and then putting your story together so that you're not walking in. I mean, you can't just walk in with a bunch of data in your head. You have
Yeah.
to be able to, walk in with the story and be able to capture the audience
Yes.
based on how you convey that story.
Oh, well, as someone
So,
who is fortunate enough to do storytelling as a living, I really resonate with that.
oh
Love
yeah,
that.
that's a
What's
good
the
point.
story? And,
Yeah,
come ready with the story, the data points. And so
yeah,
that is awesome to hear. And good, I think, good sound advice for
great.
preparing. I love that. I feel like we could go on for like another hour or two. But unfortunately, we have to start wrapping up. You have so many good nuggets of wisdom, just for personal to professional
Oh,
life,
thank you.
everything. What's one key message you want to leave with women in tech or those aiming for leadership positions?
Align yourself with folks that promote you
Yeah.
versus folks that use you to promote themselves.
Ooh,
Right. So
that's a good one.
I think that's important. And, it is super important to also make sure that there are opportunities wherever you go. Right.
Yeah.
And I've been here 20 years, but I haven't just been doing one thing.
Yeah.
There's been lots of opportunities, things that I've had to fix, things that I've had to expand. But, surrounding yourself with folks that are like you, and you're in my case, I've been in organizations where they really wanted to grow their folks,
Yeah.
right? And promote them from within. And if that's your personality, you've got to align yourself with the organizations and the people
Yeah.
that will promote that. I've been in organizations or folks that have worked for me that really didn't have any desire to grow, right? They wanted to stay in a position and be really good at that,
Yeah.
right? Which I completely appreciate that. And there's always a place. For me, I wouldn't be able to stay within an organization if I didn't have those types of challenges. So
Right.
folks that are looking at, what's next for me, align yourself with that type of organization that fits with you.
Yeah.
To me, it was probably one of the best things I've done in my career.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Right. Where you're going to grow and where people are going to promote you, and love that.
sure.
What are you most excited about when it comes to the future of women in leadership and the evolution of the tech workforce itself?
So it's funny because when I started in the tech industry, I was the only female in my group.
Oh my goodness.
for a long time.
Yeah.
So back then, project managers, there was no PMP was just starting. There was no, best practices wasn't really embraced like it is. I kind of came in with a different perspective because I didn't start out as an engineer.
Yeah.
Most of the project managers were all previous engineers and they all had their own trade. Like
Oh
this
my
one did
goodness.
cabling, this one did routing and switching, this one did, circuits, right?
Yeah.
And so they became good project managers because they were good at the technology. I came in with a different perspective and learned that, hey, what I'm going to do is really figure out how to be a good leader.
Yes.
And I don't need to be the engineer. I just need to know enough about the technology to know how to manage those technical resources.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it was a different perspective. So I'm being the only female and being the only one that
Yeah,
wasn't
that must have been
technical,
so intimidating for some.
but they all embraced me, right? They
Amazing.
all, we were a really good group, and I remember us sharing each other's stories and having people call me to say, like, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Whereas meanwhile, I'm like, well, how do you do it?
Right.
But as far as at being a woman in technology, I think for me the biggest thing is it's not about who's right or wrong. It's not about who's better or worse.
Yeah.
It's really about learning how we can complement each other. And, I believe that being a woman in IT, you have a different perspective. It's not a right or wrong.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for any organization that learns that it's about how we complement each other, that we can become much stronger versus right or wrong. Right. I think for me, it was funny working almost all with men. The expectation was I was going to be like them.
Oh wow.
And it wasn't ever said to me. It just was clear that was the expectation. And in a lot of ways, I did become one of the guys, but I've always brought in a different perspective because I was who I was,
Yeah.
right? And I felt like we learned from each other and we all grew from each other, right? And I think that's where women in technology will really help elevate any organization or personal careers, is how we learn how to complement each other.
Yes.
So,
Stronger together. That's what it
exactly.
sounds like. I
Yeah.
love that. Trina Marlowe, thank you so much again for
Thank
joining us
you.
for the amazing
Thanks, Fran.
conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Iron Bow's Tech and Translation podcast on your favorite listening platform. For more insights on leadership and the future of women in tech, visit ironbow.com. Until next time.